Alright, so for today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the CRIPOP 5-piece insulated tool set. Now, before we get too far into this video, I would like to thank CRIPOP for reaching out to me and sending these to me to make a video on, so big thanks to them. I had a choice to pick from a few different things and decided to go with this set. So here we are. Now this guy does come in this nice plastic holder. There is a handle that does screw on to it, but I have not screwed that on yet. And you have a place inside that's all foam and everything. Go ahead and open up the inside of that, and I'll go ahead and show you the inside of it. You can see you got some nice labeling and everything there on the inside. It gives you kind of some specs on the tools, which is nice, which is a nice feature. So we're gonna go ahead and pause the video. I'm gonna get these tools out and kind of show you how all of them work. All right, and we are back, and here are all of the tools that come in the kit that I decided to have sent to me. You get a nice Phillips number 2 screwdriver, and one thing to note about these is they are a slim bit design, so if you hit a recessed screw, these would be able to go into that recess, and you would be able to tighten and or loosen that screw. Now you do have a hole here on the back, which I would assume is for either hanging it, or if you were working at a height, you could tether this tool off to you, and you would be good, not have to worry about it falling down to the ground. Now you do have the CRIPOP name, which I believe is just pad printed on the surface of the tool. And then you have all of the certifications that this tool went through to prove that it could withstand up to 1,000 volts. So there you go, there is your Phillips number 2. Screwdriver, and then you get a 1/4 inch slotted screwdriver, which is pretty much the two most standard sizes for myself that I would use. So here you go again, you got all the certifications there on the back that the tool went through. It's pretty much the same as the Phillips, you know, you get that slimline design to it, other than it's a slotted bit. So we'll set him off to the side. Now here are the 3 pliers that this kit does include. You get a pair of 8-inch diagonal cutters, you get just a standard pair of stamped wire strippers, and then you get a pair of alignment pliers that do feature a crimper on them. So we're going to go ahead and put the wire strippers and the alignments off to the side, and we'll go ahead and zoom in here and be able to take a look at these diagonal cutters. Now when I first was looking at these, I didn't realize that this had an angled head in there. I actually kind of like that because recently I kind of bought a pair of angled diagonal cutters, and I find them very helpful when it comes to cutting out knockouts. It's just a lot easier to get a pair of an angled head pair of diagonal cutters in there to try and grab a hold of it, cut it out, and pry it out than a standard pair. So that is nice that they did come with the angled head. Like I said, I wasn't expecting that. Now you do have the CRIPOP name laser etched onto the surface, and then you also have some warnings laser etched onto the surface, and then the other side you have some more information laser etched onto the surface. And you have a fairly nice clean looking cutting edge. It's nice and shiny there on the inside. Now I'm sure after cutting through some wire, putting these through the paces, that will start to wear off. Now coming to the handles, you got the nice red and yellow color for the VDE markings on them, and then you have these nubs here, which kind of reminds me of the nubs you would see on a pair of Knipex, where it's like, hey, you don't really want to go past this point, because if you do go past this point, you're risking getting shocked from, you know, electrical, getting shocked from, you know, some wire or whatever. So I do like that, where some where it's just like all a smooth handle, where it doesn't really kind of have like a stop or a catch. So I do like that feature. Now you do got the CRIPOP name in the handle as well, and then I guess this is a patented design for them. And I would assume that 25 on here would be the year that this tool was made. Generally on insulated tools, the year is somewhere on them, just to kind of tell you how old the tool is, and just give you an idea if the insulation may or may not be good still. And then coming to the side, you got some, some 1,000 volts markings there embossed in the handle, and then it's pretty much the same on both sides of the handle, except you got some more, information here. And then you also have some of that information on the inside of the handles. I'm not really sure what that black mark is from, probably from production. But yeah, I do like like I said, I do like the angled head on them. I'm bringing some wire here, and we'll see how all these function here. So we'll go ahead and zoom out just a little bit. See how all these function. Then, you know, obviously a pair of diagonal cutters it should be able to cut wire without an issue. So these cut, you know, some 10 gauge wire without any issue. I guess I'll bring in some 14 gauge wire and we'll try and cut 3 of them at once. Again, if we cut through that 10 gauge wire, we shouldn't have any issues cutting through that 3 14 gauge wires. Go ahead and do that again. And again, has no issues cutting through that 14 gauge wire. So we'll go ahead and move that off to the side. And I'm going to see if I can strip this 10 gauge wire with these cutters. So we'll just spin it around a couple times and see if I can't pull off that insulation. And I was indeed able to do that. And I don't think I nicked any of the conductors there on the inside. So that is a plus there. We'll go ahead and chop that guy off. So there is the diagonal cutters from CRIPOP. So we're going to go ahead and set those off to the side. And we'll bring in the next tool. We'll bring in the lineman pliers. Now, like I said, these guys do have a wire crimper on them. For me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of like pliers and stuff that have wire crimpers on them. I know when I first started the channel, I thought, you know, it was a cool idea and everything. They do come in handy if you don't have a crimper on you. But for me personally, I just like a standard pair of crimpers. That's, like I said, that's just my preference. Yours might be different. But you do have a fairly large head on these guys, and they do look relatively clean. They almost kind of remind me like a pair of Kleins. Just kind of how the head's styled and shaped. And then at the front of the jaws, they don't quite meet all together, so you can give you a little bit better of a grip and a little bit easier to twist, whereas some pliers, if they shut all the way, it can be a little bit harder to grip. And you got to use a little bit more pressure on the handles, so that is a nice feature. And again, the handles are relatively the same as the diagonal cutters. So, oh, there you go. There is the backside, and I would think that is going to be the model number for these guys, because it is slightly different than these ones. It's 250 instead of 200, and P08, P05. So I would assume that that is the model number for these guys, and then you also have the year there as well. And I'm not sure if they make a like a tether attachment for these, so if you're working at height, you could, you know, obviously tie them off, but they did include some sort of clip here. I might have to look into that some more. So there you go. That's pretty much it for the detail on the lineman pliers. Now, everyone wants to probably know how well they cut, so we'll go ahead and bring them in here and cut some wire with these guys. They do a fairly decent job cutting that 10 gauge wire. And we'll bring in, you know, a 14 gauge wire and see how well we can cut with it. It's a fairly smooth cut and really have no complaints there. So we'll go ahead and get those wire cuts out of the way. And I guess we'll see if I can strip this 14 gauge wire. Definitely not a common size wire that I work with, but you know, there you go. I was able to use the lineman pliers to strip that. So we'll put that off to the side, and we'll bring in our 10 gauge wire. Ooh, didn't quite get it there, but I got it off that time. And we'll bring in a wire terminal here, and we'll see how well the crimper feature does work. I'm sure someone's going to complain that I stripped too much of the insulation back, but it's just for a video, so I don't really care. We'll go ahead and stick that guy in there, and we'll give that guy a crimp. So go squeeze that down there on the inside, and we made a connection there. Probably not the best of connections, but again, for the video. So we'll go ahead and chop that guy off. So there is the lineman pliers. So we'll set those guys off to the side, and we'll bring in the wire strippers. Now these remind me of a pair of the Klein curve ones, the stamped metal ones that they have had out for forever. And it kind of reminds me of their insulated ones, where instead I'm glad to see that they put a lock on these. Because that was my one complaint about the Klein ones, is the lock on them. There was no lock on them, so the tool was just always sprung open. I mean, I understand why they didn't do it, but I do like a lock on there, because, you know, you don't want your hands going past this point. So that is nice that they did feature a lock on there, and they do kind of spring open quite a bit. And then, you know, there's your handles, pretty much the same. And then I believe the model number for these is going to be P31180. So there is your stamped wire strippers. Now you can cut 832, and I'm kind of surprised I went with a 1032 screw instead of 832 and a 632 screw. I don't work with machine screws too often. I mean, and when I do, it's mainly a 632 and an 832. But these ones they decided to put in the 1032. I'm not sure if that has something to do with the tool being able to do metric wire as well. Maybe that's like a perfect size for a metric screw. I'm not sure about that, but they did do a 1032 and an 832. And then you do have some wire looping holes here, so if you wanted to make a loop with some wire, you could do that. And like I said, this tool is also has got metric and American wire gauge. Now, I believe the American wire gauge side is labeled for solid wire, because a 10 gauge stranded wire does not fit in the 10 gauge stripping slot. So that is one thing to keep in mind. The rule of thumb, at least for myself, if I'm using a pair of wire strippers that has metric and American wire gauge on them, is at least for the American wire gauge, just add 2 and that tells you what it can strip. So, like a 10 gauge wire on this side, you're going to add 2 to it, and that's going to be a 12 gauge stranded wire. And you kind of see what I'm talking about here, because this is a 10 gauge stranded wire, and it is a little bit large for that stripping hole, but not to say that you couldn't do it. But you can obviously do that. But if you're going to use a larger size wire in a smaller stripping hole, you always got to keep in mind that you may or may not end up damaging the conductors there on the inside. So just keep that in mind. But you are able to, strip a 10 gauge wire. But like I said, I really think these are for solid, are labeled for solid. So we'll go ahead and strip a 12 gauge stranded wire, and we don't have any issues there. Now for me, I mean, some people just like to close the pliers down onto it and strip it. That's fine, but what I like to do is I give it a little rotate real quick, and then boom, pull off the insulation without any issues. So strip that 12 gauge wire without an issue, and we'll try this 14 gauge wire, and it does it without any issue. And as far as I can see, I do not see any damage done to the conductors there on the inside on the wire itself. So there you go. That is the CRIPOP wire strippers. So overall, I have to say I'm pretty impressed with these tools from CRIPOP. It's a fairly inexpensive set that you can pick up for yourself. Some insulated tools by themselves, especially when you get the big name brands of them. They can run $100 just for one tool, and if you're not using insulated tools every day, this might not be a bad investment for you to pick up if you don't want to spend the big money. Like I said, on the big name brands, these tools performed fairly well for some of the testing that I've put them through. And as you kind of saw for the video, they pretty much did everything I asked them to. Now it's kind of hard for me to demonstrate the screwdrivers, because it's kind of hard to do it. But the one thing I do like about these is they have these squared ends on them, so it's kind of hard for it to roll away. So that is a big feature. I do like that, because there's nothing worse than setting your screwdriver down, especially if you're on like a slight angle or whatever you're working on. It's on like got a slight pitch to it, and that screwdriver just wants to roll right off. I've had it happen to me several times. And sometimes you just set that screwdriver up there, rolls off, and you forget about it until you need it, and then you're scrambling around looking for it. So I do like that feature. But overall, I'm actually pretty happy with these tools. Like I said, I think it's a great value for what they are. I wasn't expecting them to come with a carrying case. That's a plus. It was labeled, and that carrying case does seem like it locks together with some other carrying cases that they probably offer for some of their other tools. So that is a pretty cool feature. You can just lock them all together and kind of keep all your insulated tools together. Like I said, definitely a good investment if you're not looking to spend big money on a bunch of insulated tools, especially if you're not going to use them frequently. So I could easily recommend this set to anybody. And again, big thanks to CRIPOP for sending these out to me to check out. Now, I want to make one thing clear. They didn't pay me to do this. They just reached out to me and asked if I wanted to check out their tools, and I agreed. So this is just my opinion on them. So hopefully this video helps you out if you were looking at purchasing these for yourself. I will do my best, as always, to leave some more information about these down in the description. I believe they are mainly an Amazon brand, so you can find these guys on Amazon. I'm going to look into their website and see if you can purchase directly from them as well. And like I said, if they have some more information about these, the link will be down in the description below if you would like to learn more about this tool set, or if you want to check out and see what other products CRIPOP has to offer, you can head on over to the website and see what else they have. But for today's video, that's all I have. So like I said, big thanks to CRIPOP for sending these out to me. And as always, thanks for stopping on by. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I do hope to see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.